Returning now to the carbon tax debate, with Treasurer Wayne Swan arguing the economic case today based on selected excerpts from some yet-to-be-released Treasury modelling. In a speech at the National Press Club, the Treasurer said he was trying to inject some clarity into the debate. Wayne Swan joined me earlier this evening from Canberra. Wayne Swan, many thanks for joining Lateline.
Good evening, Ali. Good to be with you.
You spoke passionately today about meeting with Nicholas Stern 5 years ago and learning that the costs of not acting to curb global warming were so catastrophic, in your words, that you've never lost your belief that Australia needs an ETS. How hard was it then for you personally to stand by Kevin Rudd while he shelved an ETS, even though it was not backed by Parliament? This, in your words, was an unwavering belief. And then also to stand by Julia Gillard last year when she put off a decision before the election for 2 years.
Well, Ali, what was hard was to watch the Liberal Party vote down the carbon pollution reduction scheme 3 times in the National Parliament. People should never forget that we don't have an emissions trading scheme at the moment because of the actions of the Liberal Party in the lower house, and of course that scheme was also voted down by the Greens in the upper house. Now, of course, we were put in a position of what could we do, having had the scheme voted down on 3 occasions. We took a decision. It's been widely canvassed. I don't discuss those cabinet considerations, but I know that all of our leaders, including the former Prime Minister and the current Prime Minister, are very passionate about climate change. We were put in a difficult decision, and we took a difficult position, and we took a difficult decision. But we are proceeding with this because we do believe in the science of climate change, and we understand the economics of climate change, that we must do something about dangerous climate change, not just to save the planet and our environment, but to keep a prosperous economy. And that, of course, was at the core of what Mr Stern spoke about. You
say that you won't talk about cabinet decisions, and particularly those that have been widely discussed. Indeed, in that wide discussion, you've been fingered as being one who not just encouraged Kevin Rudd to dump the ETS, but in fact to kill it. That doesn't sit very comfortably with what you said today. Quote, "I've always been active within the party in advocating an ETS."
Yes, and I do support a market-based mechanism and an emissions trading scheme. I've always supported it.
So did you encourage Kevin Rudd to dump the scheme?
What I've said, I'm not going to talk about those cabinet discussions. There was a difficult decision that had to be taken. It was taken. I don't canvass those things in public. I haven't in the past. I'm not going to into the future. But I think what I've demonstrated and what the Prime Minister has demonstrated is that we are fundamentally committed to doing something about dangerous climate change, to do it via a market mechanism, and to do it for the very best of reasons, not just to save the planet, but to do something for our economy for the future, because the economies that will prosper in the 21st century will be those that are driven by clean energy. So we have a remarkable opportunity right now to put a price on carbon, to do that efficiently and to set the country up for the future.
But doesn't it go to the heart, though, of the question of a politician's credibility? You say that you and the party are fundamentally committed, but how do we know what you believe in if those beliefs do not always inform your public policy?
Well, Ali, they do inform public policy. They informed
so
us
did
through
they
the term
when
of
the
last
ETS was dumped?
They informed us through the period of the last government. We developed day after day, month after month, an emissions trading scheme. We worked hard day after day, month after month to get that through the Parliament, and to see it sabotaged by Mr Abbott.
And then you gave up, then you walked away.
Well, the government decided not to proceed after it was defeated in the Parliament on 3 occasions. And, of course, following the election, we have proceeded to put in place a market-based mechanism to deal with dangerous climate change. What that shows is an enormous amount of conviction and commitment.
Well, a final question on this. Is it fair then to assume, though, that you agree with Kevin Rudd the decision to dump the ETS was a mistake?
Well, it's not something that I'm going to canvass in public. I haven't in the past, and I'm not going to tonight.
All right. Well, the government's put the detail of the carbon tax into the hands of the multi-party Climate Change Committee. Why did members of that committee have to read about key Treasury modelling in the newspapers this morning? Isn't that, at least if you are trying to get clarity in the debate, wouldn't it be better to give them the information first? Aren't they the ones who need the clarity?
Well, members of the multi-party committee have been briefed on the modelling.
Had they seen these numbers before they were in the paper this morning?
They have been briefed on the modelling.
So had they seen these numbers? I don't know
whether they've seen the numbers that I put out today, because these are government numbers in modelling that we commissioned, but they have been briefed on the modelling.
Well, they say they hadn't seen the numbers, so were they not right?
Well, I think it's very important that I put out in the public a snapshot of what the modelling is pointing to. The modelling will be completed. It will be available to members of the multi-party committee. It will be made public in the interests of a fuller and frank public debate about its conclusions. But I work with the multi-party committee in good faith, and I'm certainly working with the wider community in good faith to put all the facts on the table, because what the modelling shows is that we can have strong economic growth, strong income growth and strong employment growth and still make substantial cuts in carbon pollution. And it was very important to put that in the public arena, given what Mr Abbott has been up to in recent weeks and months.
Indeed, the modelling, as you said today, the modelling does show that aggregate employment numbers remain much the same whether or not you have a carbon tax. That's based on a price of $20 a tonne. If it's $40 a tonne, is the outcome the same?
Well, there are various scenarios in the modelling, and they will all be published when the modelling is finished and finalised. And everybody can debate the answer to that question when that is all available.
But I guess my point is you came out today and you said very clearly that this shows that a carbon tax doesn't really change the outcome for employment. Can you say that categorically? Does your modelling show that at $30 or at $40 or at $50 the outcome's the same?
Well, Ali, I'm not going to go through the detail of the modelling. It's not all completed. I've used the example of the $20 price, but of course there are other prices which are being modelled. I just wanted to make the point that you can have strong growth, strong income growth, strong jobs growth, and still reduce carbon pollution substantially, and that's the major point. But all of the detail,
is that major point, though, not only applicable if it's $20 a tonne? And you've made it very clear today that you haven't decided on that price.
Well, I haven't decided, and the government hasn't decided on a price. I just wanted to give one example using one price, because you've got all of the alarmist predictions from Mr Abbott and other climate change deniers out there, grossly exaggerating the impact, claiming the world will end. I just wanted to make that point based on the modelling. And the modelling, when it's published, will certainly answer all of your questions and the questions of the general public and all of the people that are watching tonight who are vitally interested in this issue.
But if the modelling's not finished and you can't say what the results will be if it's a higher price than $20 a tonne, potentially isn't what you put out today misleading? Because it does lead people to have the impression that per capita real national income will be a certain result, employment numbers will be a certain result, but it's based on $20 a tonne, and it may not be $20 a tonne.
Well, I made it very clear that I was using an example based on $20 a tonne, so people have not been misled there. And I believe that when people see the modelling and when it is completed, everything that I've said today will be seen to be absolutely realistic.
So you can tell me that at $30 a tonne or $40 a tonne, the outcome's the same?
No, I'm not going to confirm that at all. I'm saying that there are various scenarios which have been modelled, and I'll be perfectly happy to be judged when all of that material is before you and the public.
And when will that be?
Well, it'll be a few weeks' time.
Could you be more specific than that, given that you want this wrapped up before the beginning of July, as I understand it?
Yeah, well, yes, we do. That's right, and that's the timetable the government is working to, as quickly as we possibly can. You see, I made the point today, Ali, that we've been through an exhaustive process, and it's one that we had to go through. We had to consult, not just with the multi-party committee, but we've been consulting with industry, the community more generally. We've been going through a thorough, methodical process. And as soon as we can get this done, as soon as we can get the modelling completed, as soon as we can take decisions, we do want to get all of the facts on the table.
The other details you referred to today were from the Productivity Commission report, which you now have and which the multi-party committee also has. You say that found that 7 out of the top 10 of our trading partners are taking action. The Commission's specific task was to look at the effective carbon prices of the various courses of action that are being taken. So can you give us any idea as to what range those effective prices are?
Well, that modelling will be out, or that piece of work from the Productivity Commission will be out in a couple of days. and people will be able to debate that fully then. I don't intend to say any more about it, except to say that it absolutely confirms that a market price-based system is the way to go, that all these direct action type policies are much more expensive, and also just makes the point that in terms of amount of effort, our country is in about the middle of the pack of the countries that they look to. But I'll leave it to the publication of that for people to make up their mind about all of that data.
But you've clearly read the report. If you can cherry-pick that bit of information, why can't you cherry-pick what many would argue is probably more important, which is what is the effective relative carbon price?
Well, for all of the reasons that I've already been through, I did want to give people a snapshot of where the material is going and where it's coming from, but all of these reports will be out there and people will be able to make their own judgment then. It's only a matter of days.
On the same day today that you talked about there'd be a minimal impact of a price on carbon, Graham Cray, who is the head of BlueScope Steel, but he's also on the board of the Reserve Bank, which certainly gives the, implication that the government values his opinions. He wrote today in a national newspaper that it may be possible to compensate consumers for part of the first-year cost of a carbon tax. It's much more difficult to compensate tens of thousands of Australians for the loss of their jobs.
Well, energy-intensive, trade-exposed industries like steel certainly do deserve assistance, and that's why the government has devoted a lot of time talking about the type of assistance that will be provided to industries like the steel industry with which Mr Cray is involved. Mr Cray does sit on the Reserve Bank board, but he doesn't speak for the Reserve Bank board, but he does speak for industry. And we're listening to what he's got to say, and we are talking at length with industry about what assistance we do provide, particularly to those trade-exposed industries. They do have an important case, and the government is listening and working with them.
Can you confirm that the tax package will be revenue neutral?
Well, what it will do is that it will fit within our fiscal rules. That's all I can say at this stage.
So what does that mean? Can you explain what that means to me?
Well, we've got some fiscal rules. We've got our objective of coming back to surplus in 2012-13. We've got our 2% expenditure cap. We've got our tax to GDP ratio. They're our fiscal rules, and the whole package will fit within those fiscal rules.
Now, on the night of the budget, Penny Wong told this program that it would be revenue neutral. So is what you're saying the same as what she said?
Well, I'm saying it will fit within our fiscal rules, but we've got to go through and do all of the detailed work. We're doing that at the moment, and I'll be happy to talk about that when we release the package.
But I guess she was comfortable to say that it would be broadly revenue neutral back then in May. You're not comfortable to say that now?
Well, I'm comfortable with making the point that I've just made, and I think broadly revenue neutral is a realistic thing to say.
Another issue, Treasurer, the Reserve Bank Board today decided to keep interest rates on hold. We all know the mining sector is booming, but how worried are you about the non-mining sections of the economy? We've got weaker employment, weaker job ads, we've got weaker housing prices and weaker credit growth. Does that concern you?
Well, we've also had very strong employment growth and we've got a very strong investment pipeline. But in the middle of that strong employment growth and that strong investment, we certainly have a patchwork economy. And not everybody in this economy is going at the same speed as everybody else. That's particularly the case, particularly for, say, small business, for example, depending upon where they are located. So we do have to be mindful of the fact that there's a patchwork economy. And when we put in place our policy settings, we've got to take that into account. That's, for example, why we want to use the revenue from the MRRT to give a tax cut to small business, to make sure that those that aren't in the fast lane get some benefit from the resources boom, to make sure we make the investments, particularly in infrastructure, and of course to put some additional money back into superannuation.
Of course you have that flexibility. The Reserve Bank Board doesn't, does it?
No, but of course the Reserve Bank has noted that our fiscal policy is tight. Our determination to come back to surplus in 2012-13 is absolutely critical because we do understand there is a strong investment pipeline and we don't want to contribute to inflationary pressures in the economy.
Treasurer, many thanks for joining Lateline tonight.
Good to be with you.